Hey friends, how's it going? So I'm just about to put the finishing touches on a new lo-fi hip-hop album that I'm going to be sending to Artlist and Motion Array, as well as uploading to Spotify. And I guess I thought I'd share a few thoughts about writing lo-fi tracks that are optimized for success on music libraries specifically. And make sure to stay to the end of the video because I'm going to share with you my top 5 not-so-secret weapons for producing perfect vibey tracks every single time. So it's been about a year since I joined Artlist, and the 13 or so tracks that I have live on the site are about to pass 50,000 downloads. And that's not including the many thousands of downloads that I also have on Motion Array for those same tracks. It ain't bad for a modest collection of lo-fi hip-hop tracks spread across 2 albums. And I'm hoping to double those downloads throughout this year. If you want to know what my downloads translated into in terms of my earnings for 2021, I did a video on that. You can check that out via the link above somewhere. So before I get into it, please make sure to check out productionmusicacademy.com if you want to level up your production game and learn how to write effective licensing music. I gotta say, the current members are absolutely killing it. They're finding opportunities, they're sharpening their skills. I just had a member tell me last week that he was finally accepted by Artlist, and I'll be talking a little bit more about Artlist in this video today. I also have members telling me that their upload limits are being lifted on Audio Jungle. They're getting their tracks accepted more regularly there. They're getting sales more regularly on Pond 5 even. And as most of you know, I'm doing monthly challenges in the Academy, and the members are literally blowing me away every single month. I'm super proud of everyone who's submitted something so far. So big shout out to you guys. And if you're thinking about joining up, you should be aware that I'm going to be doing a big Easter special starting on Easter Monday, April 18th. And it's going to run all week long. So discounted membership just around the corner. But in the meantime, if you want more information, make sure to go check out that link in the description below. Okay, so what is a secret sauce for writing lo-fi tracks that are licensable? Well, in a nutshell, I would say that above all else, it's vibe, tempo, and texture. With regards to vibe, it follows the same general principle for production music success overall. Happy, uplifting, positive, upbeat music just tends to sell better. That doesn't mean that you can't explore those nostalgic, dreamy, introspective, or even sad progressions and themes in your tracks. It's just that there's more utility for positive vibes. And it's important to look at things from the buyer's perspective. I regularly get served ads for products on Instagram that are using my music in the background, music that was downloaded from Artlist and Motion Array. And it's always really fascinating to see how the music fits in with the product and the video editing. And that brings me to my second point. Tempo is something to consider carefully. The reason being that video editing and ads these days is just really fast paced, lots of cuts, lots of things moving around, a lot of frenetic movement. So my rule of thumb is I basically never go below 80 beats per minute. I think it's possible to go lower. A couple of my tracks are, lower, like 75 or so. But if I dip below the 80 BPM range, I'm usually trying to find ways to pack in lots of information into the bars. So in order for it to sound kind of busier, if that makes any sense. To be clear, I listen to a lot of Spotify playlists for lo-fi inspiration, and many of the artists that are killing it on Spotify that are writing these like really tasteful, minimal type lo-fi tracks that maybe, might typically be referred to as study beats for lack of a better description. Many of those tracks might not necessarily translate that well into the licensing world because sometimes the pacing is just really slow or it's too minimal, and it might be, emotionally kind of neutral even. And I think it all comes back to keeping in mind what the customer is looking for. If you're running an ad campaign, for example, you're probably going to choose something that's in that like feel good, positive vein because, well, I mean, that's the kind of music that sells products, I guess. I mean, that's the gist of it. So texture is something that I think about in terms of the specific library that I'm pitching to. And Keep in mind that pretty much all of these libraries are run by relatively small, dedicated creative teams, and they have preferences. Just listen to whatever library's current catalog to fully understand what exactly they're looking for, and how they're trying to brand themselves. And this is something that I paid very, very close attention to before I submitted my music to Artlist. And while there's clearly many different types of genres on that library, they clearly have a penchant for that cinematic, well-textured music overall. And in a way, I think of it sort of as like the antithesis of what we typically think of in terms of stock music. And while it is technically speaking stock music, it's a much different flavor than what you'd find on Audio Jungle, for instance. That typical, clean cut corporate type of vibe. You just don't really find that kind of stuff on Artlist because their whole brand is very, it's very artist centric. They're trying to be the opposite of Audio Jungle in a sense. And I think it's really important to understand a library's brand before you submit music to them. And it really doesn't take a lot of research to figure it out. This is why the lo-fi hip hop I send Artlist is kind of on that cinematic tip. Lots of floaty ambient elements, vintage textures, reverb, that sort of thing. So that's their brand. It's a good fit for their catalog. Okay, so just a few thoughts for you to chew on there. Now, as promised, let me take you behind the scenes here and let's dig into my lo-fi arsenal. I'm going to show you guys the 5 essential tools that I absolutely need to create these lo-fi hip hop tracks. So let's check it out. Okay, so first thing I got to feature on this list, which is probably my favorite, is just my 2 GoodHertz plugins, which I absolutely love, and I'm so happy to shout these guys out because I just think they make amazing plugins. I use their tube plugin, this tube tape saturation plugin on a lot. In this case, I got it on this synth group, and just like a quick before and after with just kind of warming everything up. And then probably my most used plugin of any of my plugins is my Wolf compressor, also by GoodHertz. This plugin is modeled after the Boss SP303 Dr. Sample sampler. It's modeled after that compression algorithm, and it just adds so much nice flavor and color to everything. I think where the Wolf compressor is most useful is usually on the drums for me. I tend to use it on drum groups primarily. And if you're throwing textural elements and percussive stuff through that same drum bus, with the Wolf compressor, it just has a way of kind of wrapping everything around the kick in this nice juicy way that is just, I don't know, hard to match with any other compressor. I love it. I just think it sounds great. Another tool I find really helpful for lo-fi hip hop is Output's Arcade. Output makes all sorts of great products. You guys have heard me talk about them before. And I try to stay away from leaning too heavily on, loops to build tracks, like, whether it be Splice or Arcade. What I find it extremely useful for is just for adding a bit of texture to the track. And there's a few lines in particular that are really, really useful. This Aura one specifically here is one that I use quite often. So just to give you an example here, I have 2 patches from Aura loaded up and soloed in this track here, along with my synths, and it sounds like this. Without the synths. Just really powerful ear candy. It's so easy to use. There's so many great lines. There's so much to choose from. I really have nothing but great things to say about Arcade. I think it's very useful. I use it in all sorts of different genres. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to Splice, except for that it's all tempo synced with whatever your session is. And it's easy to transpose the samples up or down so they fit whatever key signature you're writing in. One other plugin I should really shout out just quickly here by Output as well is their Movement plugin, which I do use fairly often in my lo-fi hip hop tracks. And what Movement is basically like a rhythm engine. It has all sorts of really interesting presets, which basically automate, the panning and filtering, delay, compression, distortion, and it can really easily just kind of inject a lot of movement, hence the name, into just like regular sounding stuff, and it just makes it sound really cool. I have it loaded up on this electric guitar part here. Just listening to it without it. And with. So I've only got it mixed in about like 50% there, and it's subtle. You'd probably have to be listening on headphones to get the full effect, but everything's kind of dancing around left to right, and there's like this auto filter going on. It just makes that guitar sound like, way cooler. And that's what lo-fi is all about for me. It's just kind of like messing things up and making it sound interesting. Speaking of which, I have a new plugin that I've been using just recently called Sketch Cassette, which I really like, by a company called Aberrant. Let's put some Sketch Cassette on this same guitar here. And what I love about this Sketch Cassette plugin is that it totally reminds me of, it really takes me back to using my old Tascam Porta Studio. And it's like I get the same effect, but in digital form here, which I absolutely love. I could push this wow and flutter to the max here. You can hear how it really messes it up. Obviously, that's a little bit over the top. But a tasteful amount of this Sketch Cassette, and it really goes a long way, depending on what instruments you're using it on. Acoustic guitars, sounds great. Electric guitars, great. Synths even, I'm finding it really useful. I also reach for, my RC20 fairly often, which is kind of basically does the same thing. You can dial in the saturation and the wobble, and the distortion independently, all in the same way that you can with the Sketch Cassette. And this, everyone knows RC20. Probably a lot of you guys that are writing hip hop have it. It's probably one of the most popular plugins for lo-fi. I really like RC20's noise options. The background like vinyl crackle that comes with the plugin just sounds really, really nice, and I often kind of throw a little bit of that in to my lo-fi hip hop tracks, of course. That's kind of a classic move. Always fun to scroll through the presets on RC20 and just go from there. It's really easy to dial something in that sounds kind of cool. So aside from plugins, I think probably one of my real secret weapons is just my crappy Squier bass. I shouldn't call it crappy. It's not crappy, but it's nothing special. It's really just kind of a run of the mill, bass, but it just sounds good. And, I think that with lo-fi tracks or with any productions, really, it's important to, use your unfair advantage, I guess, if, whether that's, maybe you're really a great pianist, maybe you're a singer. In my case, I'm a guitar player and a bass player too, I guess. And, and one of the ways that I can inject some creativity and dial in my signature sound, so to speak, is by picking up my bass and just going for it. It's one of my favorite things to do when writing tracks in general, not just lo-fi tracks, but anything, whether it be pop, indie rock, whatever. My guitar and bass are a part of my signature sound, and I always make sure to dial in really tasteful bass lines for my lo-fi hip hop, and I think that's one of the strengths of my tracks. And my signal chain for the bass is just dead simple. I go straight into my Apollo unit, and I usually just have a compressor loaded on the channel, and that's it, just clean DI. Often my classical guitar and my acoustic guitar makes it into my lo-fi tracks too. And as someone who incorporates a lot of piano playing into my lo-fi tracks, it's always something I struggle with a lot, and it's nice to just have an instrument that is just reliable and that you're really comfortable with. So I think that's more than 5 things. Sorry about that. But I just got excited, I guess. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you all. And once again, please be sure to check out those links in the description below. Hit me up if you have any questions at all about the Academy. Check out the Make Music Income podcast. Join the Discord server. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all the things. All those links are below. Love you all, and I hope you're all doing great, and I will see you next time. Take care.